Good morning. Welcome to the Point. This past week saw a flurry of political and policy activity in the state. On Tuesday, I sat down with Governor Gretchen Whitmer to talk about the plans for her following day's State of the State address. Sometimes you know you won't get the answers to all of your questions, but you have to try.
Well, States of the State are an important opportunity to just lay out kind of the vision for the next year. And there's not going to be a lot of surprises here. I'm going to stay tethered to the foundational things that improve people's lives. So I am, of course, going to talk about the next step on our plan to fix the roads. I am going to spend quite a bit of time on health care and how we improve outcomes for moms and babies in particular in the state of Michigan, but also how we bring down the cost of prescription drugs. I'm going to stay focused on closing the skills gap. I'm going to call on the legislature to move that bipartisan bunch of bills called Michigan Reconnect, which is a way to upskill our population and get people who are hardworking to get them just into better paying jobs that are going unfilled right now. So it's the fundamentals. I'll be reserving a special message on the environment and water for a little bit later in the spring because I think that it's deserving of its own kind of standalone and people see why when we do that.
What is the thing that I will be talking about on Thursday that you will talk about on Wednesday?
Roads.
Is there a new revenue stream?
So, it's after putting forward a plan that was a user fee that was constitutionally dedicated to fixing the problem and getting absolutely no help from the legislature, much less an alternative. I've, stopped. I'm tired of waiting. We cannot afford to wait. Inaction is not an option. And so what I put out tomorrow night at the State of the State will be Plan B. And it's how we move forward and start moving some dirt and improving the safety of our roads and ensuring that Michigan's a place where these phenomenal cars of the future that I was just announcing in Hamtramck yesterday can actually function on Michigan roads. We don't want to build them and have to see them, be used elsewhere. We want them to be used on connected, safe roads that support those vehicles.
When you look at the next 2 weeks, you've got State of the State, you're going to deliver the response to the President's State of the Union, and your budget presentation coming out. Mm-hmm. Is this perhaps among the most consequential 2 weeks that you will have in this office?
It's, we kicked off yesterday by announcing 2,200 jobs in Hamtramck and GM's 10-year commitment that they've made to the state of Michigan. It culminates in introducing the budget at the end of next week, and a lot's going to happen between now and then. But I feel great about where we are and where we're headed. We've announced more auto jobs in Michigan in the last 13 months than MEDC's ever announced in the history of the organization. We're on the move. Lansing needs to catch up, and that's what I'm pushing for.
When you, and by the time the bulk of this airs, we will know what was in your State of the State plan, but when you introduce your plans, it occurs to me that one of the things you had talked about overall was a long-term, not one-time fix, try to get something going a long way down the road. And we've all speculated about what that might be, and I'm not going to sit here and try to ask the same question 14 times, but let me ask it this way. Is this a long-term fix that you will be talking about?
This is a meaningful way to improve the quality of our state roads. And it is financially the right thing to do. It is prudent as well as responsible. As the governor of the state, even if I got a legislature who's not putting real serious alternatives out, I have a duty to do what I can unilaterally, and I'm going to do that. And you'll learn more about what that is tomorrow night.
So tomorrow morning at 6:45, I'm going to preview the State of the State. And yes, I will be talking about roads. What else should I be talking about that people should be watching for that will be something that might not be on my radar?
I think that on everything I'm going to talk about in the space of healthcare and child care, we're going to be doing some cutting edge things here in Michigan that are going to perhaps give us the leadership space in an area that is long overdue. Partnerships with the deans of our medical schools, as well as CEOs of our hospitals across the state to address and tackle the implicit bias that keeps women of color from getting the kind of care that they need, and their babies as well. So I think that's something that we're going to flesh out in this speech, and people are really going to be, it'll change the way that they think about healthcare.
And my final question is, what are you going to do about the roads?
So good to see you. I'll see you again tomorrow.
On Wednesday evening, the governor began her speech by telling a story about a young man in Muskegon Heights who took fixing Michigan's roads into his own hands. And she looked back at what she sees as a bipartisan success from last year, auto no-fault insurance reform.
Monty lives in Muskegon Heights, and his neighborhood was plagued by potholes. Potholes were almost an ankle deep, and after some expensive car repair bills, he got tired of waiting for the adults in charge to fix them. So Monty took action. To the delight of his neighbors and his mom, he grabbed dirt and a shovel from his backyard and filled them himself. When I met Monty, he told me his dream is to go to college and to run for mayor. I wouldn't be surprised if Monty is giving this speech one day. You can already see he's got the personality for politics, right? Monty's generation is a generation of doers, and they want to do good. They inspire me, and we, the adults in charge, should do everything we can to build a better future for them. Over the past year, we've made some good progress. After 6 straight years of the highest auto insurance rates in the nation, we passed historic legislation, bipartisan legislation that puts money back in people's pockets and brings down the cost of car insurance. In doing so, we preserved quality coverage options, we strengthened consumer protections, and most importantly, ensured an average rate reduction for the next 8 years. And this has already resulted in the Michigan Catastrophic Claims Association lowering its fees, which will save drivers at least $120 per car this year. That's progress.
Then it was on to 2020 and her plans for the new year, including finding money to fix some roads without the legislature and blaming Republican leadership for not coming up with a plan until now.
So, my friends, what are we going to do in 2020? Well, I say let's take a cue from Monty and dig right in. Anyone watching the national debate right now has heard a lot of talk about plans. Well, when it comes to tackling Michigan's problems, I have got a plan A and a plan B. Plan A was simple. It was in my budget last year. When I spoke to you then, I told you I was rolling up my sleeves and ready to work with anyone who's interested in solving problems. I still am, but we can't afford to wait. Over this year, I made tough decisions that didn't make some of my friends happy, and it was not easy. But leadership requires tough choices. Leadership means coming together around a significant problem and working through it. And sometimes we don't make our friends happy. I had hoped that the legislative Republicans would follow suit on other tough issues in order to move Michigan forward together. They haven't, but I am still hopeful. Michiganders are hard-working people. They expect results. They deserve leaders who will work hard and get things done. They won't accept excuses, and neither will I. I am not here to play games. That's why it's time for Plan B. And it's not getting Monty to fill all the potholes in Michigan. For those of you who want to keep playing games, I'm going to press on without you. I'm going to use the power of my office to do what I said I was going to do. Because for me, for Michigan, Impatience is a virtue. No more waiting around to fix our roads or improve our schools or strengthen our families. The people of Michigan are counting on us, and it is time to act. I've spoken about building bridges, metaphorically, between our two political parties. But disappointingly, we've had political gridlock. We've had to literally close bridges in Michigan. Last year, I proposed a real solution that would have fixed our roads by 2030 and freed up funds for the education of our kids. That was Plan A. It was a serious solution. It was a real solution. It was an honest solution to the problems that we inherited. But some thought otherwise. Let's just say it wasn't warmly embraced. But I'm not giving up, because the problem remains. In fact, it's worse, because another year has passed. Michigan roads are the most beat up and dangerous in the country. Michigan families pay more than $600 a year in car repairs. Cracked windshields, blown tires, busted rims. That's money that could go into your child care budget, or your retirement fund, or rent. And it's also bad for business. We can't ask business to invest in Michigan if we refuse to invest in ourselves. And we can't protect public safety if our roads put people in danger. Inaction is not an option. When I introduced my proposal, I said I was happy to consider alternative solutions. But no one came up with any, at least not serious ones. Diverting money from teacher pension system to fill some potholes? Come on. Selling bridges? Not serious. And letting roads turn back into gravel? I don't think so. Any proposal that creates more problems than it solves is not a serious solution. And so it's time for Plan B, executive action. Tomorrow I will ask the State Transportation Commission to issue state road bonds so we can start fixing the roads now. My Rebuilding Michigan plan is financed without an increase at the gas pump, and it will do three things: save time, save money, and save lives. Since it doesn't require the legislature to act, we can get started right away, and that's important. Cutting down on the time we take to repair Michigan's most frequently traveled trunk lines and state roads is fiscally responsible. We can add and expand 122 major new projects, and nearly double the amount available to fix roads over the next 5 years than if we wait. We can get to work on these state trunk line roads and freeways and take advantage of today's low interest rates. Over the long haul, we're going to actually save money. It just makes sense. So from now on, when you see orange barrels on a state road, slow down and know that it's this administration fixing the damn roads. But let me be clear, these new projects will only address the worst of our most highly traveled state roads. We still need the legislature to come up with a real, long-term solution to fix the roads. So the next time you're driving down your local street and hit a pothole or see a bridge closed, call up the leadership in this building and encourage them to act.
After the speech, the response was predictable and along party lines. Listen to these two diametrically opposed answers to essentially the same question. Lieutenant Governor, do you think the governor took the right tone in blaming the roads impasse on the Republican-led legislature?
I mean, it's always the right tone to tell the truth. And so, we put forward a real solution that actually solves the problem. And unfortunately, the Republicans decided to respond by not responding with a plan that actually made sense and could work for the people of Michigan. So instead, we decided that we can't wait any longer. So our administration is taking matters into our own hands using the authority that we do have. Obviously, the bonding proposal is one that will get to work, fixing the most important, most traveled, most heavily damaged roads, as you saw in the ride-along that we did in Grand Rapids. But there's so much more work to do. This does not solve the problem of local roads. We still need to work with Republicans to do that, and we hope that they will come to the table and realize how important it is. But the message to the residents of Michigan is very clear. When you pull out of your driveway and you're on a local road and on a county road, and it still messes up your car, and you still have to sit in the waiting room, you can call a Republican while you're there waiting and ask them to do something to fix those roads.
What do you think the governor's tone was when she essentially threw you and the legislature under the bus?
It was simply a blame game, and it would have been good, Rick, had it been true. The problem is it was revisionist history by this governor. We tried to meet her in the middle. We tried to ensure that every penny at the pump would go towards roads. She refused to work with us, and it was 45 cents or bust. And at the end of the year, she vetoed hundreds of millions of dollars in road funding because it wasn't her 45-cent gas tax.
On Thursday, the governor did just what she said she would do, bonded $3.5 billion in road funding over 5 years for the busiest and most heavily traveled highways. By then, I was in Warren, Michigan, preparing for yet another visit of President Donald Trump. This time, he was here to talk policy, as well as politics. That's next. To the Point. Welcome back to the Point. President Trump was in Warren on Thursday at an auto parts manufacturer to talk up the recently signed USMCA trade deal. But he also took the opportunity to talk about other issues that impact Michigan.
Michigan is a steward of one of our nation's most treasured resources, the incredible Great Lakes. Anybody hear the Great Lakes, huh? Think so. And I told the members who are here with me that we are going to work together to protect the Great Lakes from Asian carp. Who would have thought that was going to happen? And other invasive species, and it really is. It's become a big problem, and we're working on it very strongly. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers already has a plan, and we are going to get this done and ready to go. It's going to be very quick. We're going to do very quick. It's not easy, but we have all of the top technology, and we're going to take care of it, just like I made the promise, and that promise where so much has already been done. I also made a promise to you not so long ago right here in Michigan, and it had to do with Sulaks. So I came here, I heard about the problem. They had been working on the problem since 1980. 1980, nothing was done. It was rotting away. The locks were rotting away. There was all talk and no action, and I was being told it's never going to happen, sir. Too much money, it's just not going to happen. And they all said, leave it to the next president to do. But I said, but I am the next president, and that's it. It's a big deal. And now, as your congressman can tell you, and they worked so hard on it, all of the funding has been fully approved, right? Fully done. I signed. You think it's easy getting $922 million out of Congress? Not easy. But this had to be done. You know, we're talking about 11 million jobs indirectly all over. Those locks serve 11 million jobs. Some people think as many as 18 million jobs. So Sulaks, we're going to be starting that in a matter of a couple of months. And we're going to have it all set. We got our maximum funding, and we have the maximum design. And it's going to be good for another 100 years, they say. So we're going to get it done, okay? Also, I know everybody here in Michigan supports our great armed forces as much as any place, Michigan. And that's why we're giving strong consideration to deploying some of our mighty F-35s to Selfridge Air National Guard Base. And you know what that means, right? You know what that means. That's a big deal. So Selfridge, you're going to see a lot of very fast planes. Actually, they're totally stealth, so maybe you won't see them come in. Okay? You won't see them come in, but they're coming in.
The president's comments about policy are never far removed from politics. The bulk of his speech was a mix of both, talking about the replacement for NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement, with the USMCA, the United States-Mexico-Canada Trade Agreement.
I will say that we just ended a nightmare known as NAFTA. They took They took our jobs for a long time. They took it for a long time, and we now have a brand new U.S., Mexico, Canada agreement. It's a whole different ballgame, and it's going to be great for this plant. It's going to be incredible for Michigan and for every place else in our country. The USMCA is the fairest, most balanced, and beneficial trade agreement we have ever signed into law. It's the best agreement we've ever made, and we have others coming. And by the way, the China deal 2 weeks ago was just signed, and that's going to bring $250 billion into our country. One after another. But we're bringing you jobs back to America. Jobs are coming back, and they're coming back fast, and they're coming right here to Michigan. They are coming rapidly. You see what's going on. For many years, Washington betrayed workers like you with trade deals that were rigged to benefit foreign countries and the lobbyists. Since NAFTA was signed, the United States lost 1 in 4 manufacturing jobs. The state of Michigan alone lost nearly 200,000, think of that, manufacturing jobs, and nearly half of its vehicle manufacturing jobs. They left. They went to Mexico, they went to Canada, they went to many other places. In the last 16 years before my election, 60,000 plants and factories closed throughout the United States. Can you imagine that? 60,000. It's not even possible. And I know it's true because all of the fake news back there. See all those cameras? If I say something that's even slightly off, it's a headline. So I've been saying it for 2 years. 60,000 plants and factories closed. NAFTA was the worst trade deal probably ever made by any country. It couldn't have gotten any worse. You saw it in Michigan as much as any place. You lost your car companies. In fact, I was honored, believe it or not, about 10 years ago. I came to Michigan. I was honored by a wonderful group. I was the man of the year. And I made a speech, and it was a little bit controversial. And I didn't know too much about the car industry, but I did know that you were losing all your jobs. They were leaving. They were going to other countries. And I said, how the hell do you let that happen? But we stopped it, and this deal really stops it. And now they're all coming back because they want to be where the action is, and the action's in our country and in this state. So for decades, politicians campaigned across Michigan promising to do something about NAFTA. You heard it. You folks heard it all the time, right? Well, we're going to do something about it. They never did anything about it. I did. Probably the biggest reason that I ran for office. So I just want to say that I've kept my promise, and not only my promise in loving the people of Michigan and all over the country, but my promise of taking care of it so that other countries aren't ripping us off. They were ripping us off. You wouldn't believe what was happening. I guess you would. And I think that a lot of our leaders and our politicians from past should be ashamed of themselves for what they allowed to happen. If you look, Mexico took 32% of our car business. Think of it, in a fairly short period of time. 32% of our car business. But now we have a deal with Mexico. We have a deal with Canada. That's a whole different ballgame, so it's good. The USMCA will substantially boost exports for American dairy farmers, also very, very big.
Only Canada is left to ratify the USMCA, something leaders there say will happen soon. We'll be back with Final Note next. To the point. Next week will be another politically active one, with President Trump delivering his State of the Union address and the Democratic response from Governor Gretchen Whitmer. That all happens Tuesday. And we'll have a recap right here next Sunday. To the point.